help up there. She's my new friend.
Hello, folks. Yeah, I'm Maggie Rose. I want to kind of give you a little bit of background how I got started. It's been a journey that's been 41 of my almost 60 years of life here on this earth. 1974, I graduated high school out of Pleasant Hill, California. And there was a lot of things that were going on at that period of time. I didn't know much of my family history in the military. I had heard things back and forth, not all positive. And I found myself at a recruiting station. I was very naive and very innocent in every way, and I mean every way. Kind of joining the military was like throwing a lamb to the wolves in a way, because it was a man's world in 1974. Women had to have a higher GT score than men. Women had to have a high school diploma, men did not. Women had to be able to ask permission to get married, men did not. We've come a long way, baby, but not far enough yet in the last 41 years. I volunteered for Vietnam as a combat medic in 91 Bravo and 91 Alpha. When I was at the TARP in Travis Air Force Base, they took me off the plane and said, "You're going on a special mission. You can't know where you're going till you land for refueling." I ended up on a plane with over 300 men and 5 of us women, and I was scared to death. And talking to the men, finding out many of them had done 2 and 3 and 4 tours in Vietnam. And for those of you that have been to Vietnam and back, and those of you that even served in other places, God bless you all. Welcome home, brothers and sisters. I remember growing up in Pleasant Hill, California, and watching on the TV 30 minutes away UC Berkeley with them burning our American flag. I was a little girl growing up in the 60s and early 70s. I remember finding out later there was government that was throwing people into the UC campus to stir up things with the students and make them look like something they weren't. When I landed in Japan, I was told I was on my way to Korea. I had no idea that I was going to a country where I was going to live under martial law. When we stepped out of the streets of our military base, we were living under martial law. I won't go into all the details, but I'll tell you that you had to be off the streets at midnight. You cannot be on the streets until 4 in the morning. And I remember one time going out dancing, and I remember that I did not make it out of the hotel in time. They brought the big gates down like you see in front of our stores and like the big cities, you know, the big middle gates they bring down. And I managed to dive under the gate, and I knew it was a 30-minute walk back to Yongsan, which is the base in Seoul. And I started walking along as fast as I could. It was about 12:30 in the morning, and I heard a person yelling Korean behind me. I waited till he was almost on top of me. He had his gun drawn. I turned around and started yelling back at him in Korean. Here's this Caucasian white woman yelling at him in Korean, and he dropped his gun on the ground. I took off. I was up on the DMZ in the Joint Security Area, Camp Casey. My husband, Captain J.C. Smith, retired, did 41 years, enlisted, and he's a Mustang officer straight across from me. Jeff is pointing to him. Both of them were SF. My husband also volunteered for Vietnam, and he ended up being trained Special Forces Airborne. And he ended up, actually, when I left Korea in 1976, he actually ended up there. We didn't meet till over 15, 18, 20 years later. But he was actually up at Camp Casey. I was in JSA, Joint Security Area. They deactivated the original MASH unit, brought it down to Camp Howard, Suyong-E, where I was training other PFCs like myself how to do maintenance on those those crackerjack ambulances. So fast forward, I ended up doing the first time with my active duty and my reserves, including 6 years Guard in California and Hawaii, 28 years on my first stint without a break. And part of that time I was in OCS twice, once because I lost my paperwork, and the second time I came within, after 14 months of OCS, I came within 1 week of getting my commission, and I was in Hawaii. They lost all my paperwork because I was Caucasian female. But my combat boots as a first sergeant, believe me, when it comes to accountability and safety, that's the primo thing. And years later, as a single mother, when I found myself applying for a job working for the Department of Treasury, I found myself taken to a building on Treasure Island, which is halfway between Oakland and San Francisco. I wasn't told who I was working for. I found myself working for, of all places, the ATF. Oh my gosh. The things that they were asking me to do, to sanitize records, to hide the things they had done deliberately to keep their jobs, that cost the lives of many innocent people. So I called my uncle. His name is Hugh O'Brien. Some of you have heard of him. He played Wyatt Earp on TV from 1958 to 63. He's my bio-dad's father, my bio-dad's brother. Both of my grandfathers served in World War I, World War II, both Army and Marine Corps. My bio-father was Marine Corps. My adopted father, Larry Jansen, back here, served in Korea. He's wearing one of the bright shirts. He was in the Korean War. He was one of the last people in his group to survive. And I couldn't work for the ATF any longer with what I was learning as a 20-something-year-old with 2 young children. So I ended up finding myself working for the Department of Navy, and I was willing to take a job, a step down to a GS3, because as a Christian woman, as a constitutionalist, I could not put up with an alphabeted soup agency that was doing what they were doing to the American people. Years later, I found myself turning on my TV satellite dish in Concord, California. And I couldn't bring up any picture, and I called Michigan and said, why can't I bring up picture? Well, Maggie, because what you're listening to is you're listening to TV satellite dish shortwave. As a result of that, with the Michigan Militia and the Wolverines, I found myself 5 years doing international radio and having my own show called The Concord Hour and the New Concord Hour. I named it not because where I was living, but because the Battle of Concord and Lexington, when we kicked the British butt back. Okay? So, as a result of that, my eyes became open, and I started learning. I continue to stay in the military. I'm in the military right now. I just came off of 4.5 years of active duty. I was put back in the reserve to retire. I will be retired by my 60th birthday this September. And when I saw over the last 20 years what's been happening to my country, I have 5 children and 7 grandchildren. I cannot go down without a fight and making sure that we don't lose our country any further.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
So therefore, what I've been doing is I've been in contact again with the Wolverines in Michigan, with Jeffrey Bennett out of Micro Effect in Idaho. He's on the internet. With the Liberty Tree Radio out of Michigan. And I want to say a big thank you to Mark Corky and Nancy Corky. They have been sending cold weather supplies up here. They've been sending field vests, field gear, underwear, socks, all kinds of supplies to help these people here in Josephine County and the miners. And all I can say is that, I want to...
Maggie, we love you, baby. Yeah. We love you.
Real quick, this morning I got an email. And this email came from Loma up in Roseburg with the Liberators. And she had gotten an email from Lars Larson. Now, I don't know what happened to him over the last few years, but I didn't like what I read in that email. And so very ladylike, but as a first sergeant, I stated the truth. And I said, you know what? He hasn't been down here. I truly, in the 41 years I've been in the military, have never seen a group of people in the military and all the units, active duty, guard, and reserve that I've served overseas. I was there when Vietnam fell. I had men die in my arms. I have never seen a group of people come together like Josephine County and Roseburg and Salem and the 3%ers. God bless you all. In just less than 2 months, and actually 5 weeks, if my army had come together like this with all the months they had to prepare and work as cooperatively and like a family as this group has done, we would have a far better standing military right now. So I wrote back to Lars Larson and I said, you know what? If you have any questions, you go to Joe Rice, you go to Bruce McFarland. They need to contact Mary. They haven't been down here. They don't see what's going on down here. I was embedded with these guys in the mountains, and when that guy had his stroke, they had me on the back tail end of a pickup truck getting ready to go up to the mine. And the next thing you know, one of our men came down in an ATV, and he's throwing this almost 60-year-old woman on the back of this ATV, and he's hopping me all the way up to the mine in 4 minutes. Can you imagine? For those of you that have been there? And there's Joe Rice on the radio. As the true commander I know he's been in the past. And he was patching into Bruce McFarland for the 911. And we got that man stabilized and off the mountain in 20 minutes. He was taken to the hospital, airlifted to Portland with a blood clot. And he walked out a few days later. That shows teamwork. It was a team that did that. And, that's the kind of people we are. We just have the right chemistry. And God bless you all. Thank you.